Hello, friends. It's good to be with you again. And this month, there's a day that is very important for Canada. It's the National Indigenous Peoples Day on the 21st of June. And I thought that for the message this month, that I would invite someone from the Indigenous community. I have with me Reverend Norman Meade. And Norman, I'd like to present to you this tobacco and asking that our conversation be indeed that which helps reconciliation. I've known Reverend Norman for a long time in various circumstances, and but I'll let Reverend Norman, explain his participation and his experience.
Well, thank you, Archbishop, for the invite to come and sit with you and to share a little bit about the spiritual aspects of Indigenous Day this month of June. 21st is the day, and when we come together in a way where we celebrate with Indigenous folks, around Canada and Turtle Island and here, we come together in a way where we try to bring our spirits together in the best way we can, and sometimes we find ways of doing that by the offering of tobacco, which you offered, and I accepted it. You note that I accepted it in my left hand, the arm closest to the heart, so that when we do things together in spirit, we do it from the goodness of our hearts, of what we do in terms of reconciling some of the differences that we have been working on, embarking on. And so we use tobacco in that way. This tobacco will be offered back to Mother Earth, as we say, and it'll be done in prayer. Sometimes we offer it back, just into a sacred fire, or just back to the land, wherever I might be it might be this weekend. I will offer it back to the land because I'm heading out to do some work at Manitoba in my home community. That's where I grew up, and that's where I go back when I want to connect with the spirit of who I am. I call it returning to spirit because that's kind of what it's about. It's returning to the spirit of where I was when I was a child, when I was a little boy, and at my age now as an elder and a minister, as a church minister. I need to go back to the spirit of that spirit that is still very much part of where I am today in my life, in my whole life, and as an elder. And so I go back and I find that spiritual strength from the people I serve back home. This weekend, I'm prepared for it and preparing for it, prayerfully, mentally, physically, spiritually. I'll be doing some baptisms this Sunday. About 5 or 6 children, baptizing them, and I do that Sunday afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to going back and connecting to that in that way. So, yes.
If I could just, Reverend Norman is a ordained Anglican priest pastoring a community in Manitoba and doing wonderful work. Maybe we could get into the questions I wanted to ask of you. One was, what would you say of the state of reconciliation, of the journey of reconciliation, what's come forth, whether still challenges between Indigenous and non-Indigenous in Canada?
Yes.
What would you say?
I'm going to pick up the feather that's in front of me here, because when I answer and respond to that question, it's a good question. And when I respond to that question, I like to hold a feather in my left hand as well, because I can call upon the strength of the eagle, if you will, to allow me and to connect with the spirit that when I speak. When we think about the truth and reconciliation, or reconciliation, that word, how do we reconcile? The truth has to be before reconciliation can really happen effectively. The truth must be told about some of the things that we do now, right? And the truth will be told. And then we have a better chance and a good chance then to reconcile some of the differences that we have had, some of the pain and sufferings that we have suffered over the years, both ways, right? And so, including our spiritual being, the health, spiritual health. And so the truth will be told, and then we of course find ways of reconciling spiritually some of the things that we need to do in a spiritual way. And for everyone, self, I'm talking self, right? We do that by reconciling with our spirit to Word, Creator, God, the Lord, if you will, and reconciling ourselves in a spiritual way. Returning to spirit is kind of what I like to use.
Okay.
Right? Returning to spirit.
To the spirit of the Creator, of God.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Because for sure, in the past, there's been a lot of hurt, a lot of distancing, the whole experience of the Indian residential schools, but not just that, just the whole experience over the centuries, and it's definitely is a long journey, but a spirit-led journey.
Yes, yeah.
What would you say of your sense of the relationships between First Nations and the churches?
Well, when we think of the relationship as it is today and as it was in the past, right? Things have changed, as we know, a lot, and some of it was through residential school. Much of it was through residential school, and the way that the church had brought the spirit, to in a different way of what we knew it to be as Indigenous folks over the, before European contact. We had a time when the spirit, we found spirit in all of our relations out on the land, and the water, in the air. And everything out there, it all had a spirit. And I call it, as a minister today, an Anglican minister, I call it the garden was there waiting for us. And when we were lowered down into that garden and placed in that garden, as the scriptures talk about in Genesis, it talks about that spirit that God, the Creator, had breathed that spirit into that garden and said, here's everything that you need to live by. And the spirit is already waiting there for you. So this is, I'd like to think that we can reconcile some of our differences in that way through the spiritual, the presence of God right in creation itself, right? And
what would you say to the lay faithful of our Christian churches, Catholic Church, Anglican Church, about how they can be what part they should take on in this reconciliation? What can they do? What can they learn, or what kind of attitude should they foster in their hearts?
Yes. Yeah, well, when in the work I do as a pastor and as an elder today, I ask the non-Indigenous ones I sit with, and I do sit with many of them, and in the work I do, and I ask them just to, if they would have the respect and the appreciation of the spirit of our Indigenous way of life, to be open to it and to hear and to listen to the stories that we share. And I'm a Métis elder, as you know, Archbishop, and so but our Métis way is also to work with our brothers and our sisters of non-Indigenous, to ask them to hear our stories about and their spiritual stories. In every story, we all have a story to tell, and in those stories, you will hear some of the teachings of our ancestors, mothers, grandmothers, and fathers, forefathers that were here before, and we connect to our ancestors that way through prayer and through teachings, through listening. And this is what I ask of non-Indigenous folks that I sit with. Hear our stories, and I know that many want to hear those stories. I think it's a good starting point for us when we talk about reconciling some of our differences. It is shared through communicating and, of course, listening and verbalizing and so on, and just being there, when it comes to sharing those stories. And
especially, the stories that carry the spirit, that carry the spiritual values and beliefs. I think that's very important, and as Christian churches, we still have a longish journey in terms of knowing and respecting and valuing, honoring the spirituality.
Yes.
Through the ceremonies, through the teachings.
Yes.
On the 20th, just before the 21st, we're going to have a ceremony here with Mary Crochane and with Sandy Clayton from the Lakota, and Mary, obviously an elder amongst the Anishinaabe and for all peoples, and it's around the sense of the rock, and that holds the memories of all that has been lived and known, and that within then the use of rocks within the sweat ceremony.
Right.
There's so much to learn and to appreciate and to connect. And to connect. Not just connect beliefs, but connect people.
Yeah, if I may just explain a little bit of this, when we think about the rock and the rock formations that we have on Mother Earth, and how we can bring rock together with water and fire, if you will, in sweat lodges, and how that comes together in a very spiritual way, because when you think of those three elements in themselves, rock, water, and fire, and how it cleanses the body and the mind, and how we can send our prayers up to Creator God, if you will, that how that's done in the lodge. We do that in the church, growing up as a Catholic boy in Manitoba, we use some of those things and that some of the same ideas and concepts in that way as well. But in the lodge, it just seems like the right place to be in a sweat lodge, where the fire, water, and comes together with the grandfather's rocks that we bring in there, right? And of course, it's all in prayer. It's all praying while you're in the lodge.
And it's that what we share in common. Each of us, all of us, our relation with the Lord, with God, with the transcendent, with the Creator, who blesses all of us, and asks that we be a blessing to one another.
So, Archbishop, when we think of that relationship with Creator, with God, when you ask yourself the question, I know when I ask myself the question as a minister now of the church, so what is it that I'm really doing here in a spiritual way? I'm connecting to Creator, to God, if you will, who made it all, who placed us in this garden, right, and said, take care of it for me. Because I'm going to call you back someday, right? We talk about life and death in that breath, right? And so someday you will come back to me as the Great Spirit, Kichi Manitou, we say, and so this is what we talk about in terms of returning to spirit. Someday when we return to spirit, we go back to the spirit world, or to heaven, we say, right? When we're taken from the garden and going back, right? We were brought into the garden, given what we are given in the natural world, the natural way. And at some point we know that we will return to spirit, or return to the Great Spirit at some point, and join all the others that have already made their way there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We'll be one of the stars in the heavenly bodies.
Yes.
You and I will be one of those stars looking back, I'm sure, someday.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much, Norman. And just to have a sense of how reconciliation is about encountering each other as persons, and learning from one another, learning from our traditions and our own ways of journeying, each of us particular way, individually, and together to the Creator. So I really thank you for.
Yeah. I'll just make one last sort of closing comment here with how our spirits come together. Archbishop, we come together today as two men. We bring those little boy spirits that we were given, your spirit and mine, when we were given that as children. Even in the mother's womb, we were given those spirits that we carry today. I carry that spirit of my mother. You carry the spirit of your mother. And even before we came into the world and became our own as a person, the spirit of our mother is still very much part of us today. In the work you do, and the work I do, is that the spirit is still very much there. And just to be clear that that the spirit of our mothers and our grandmothers in our teaching is that we should always honor our mums, our grandmothers. I know it's Father's Day coming up for me on Sunday, but it's also, I also acknowledge my mother and my grandmother in a special way, because without their blessed water of their human bodies, you or I wouldn't be here.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing to meeting with you and talking with you and working together on this common journey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, there.